Hey, Tony Gackins here. Let me see here. Popping in real quick on a little ride with my son. Headed to the house. Now, one thing I want to talk about, because one thing that I noticed that I see a lot sometimes is when we can't be real. And one of the things that I'm gonna start doing, because what happens is when you build your brand and you are protective of a certain gender, whether it's male or female, and you looking out for their good, then people get the misunderstanding, and this the human thing of where we start to feel like somebody who is protecting us is enabling us, in the sense of we don't realize that somebody who loves us, somebody who cares for us, will also tell us the truth. And I think that's the problem with society. So when I come out and I try to give women the game, women start to say, oh, okay, well, Tony is for us. But then when I tell a woman the truth about herself, oh, Tony against us. And that's the problem with society. So for me, the way I do it is I call a spade a spade. I call a spade a spade. I call it right down the middle. So when I read stuff, I read into it. I read into a person, and I look at everything that go into it. So like with this TikTok dating disaster, with this situation, I'm not just listening to what she's saying, I'm also reading her. So I'm reading her and I'm seeing what her energy is saying. And then what I'm taking into context is like, I am a content creator. So I understand what it takes to get on video. And I understand where your motive have to be. So to get on video, you only motivated by certain things. And if you motivated to change lives, then you also gonna teach lessons, and you're going to share your experiences. But then you also could be motivated by attention. And so one of the things that I hate is attention. Like, I got a birthday dinner coming up, and I was thinking last night, I'm like, man, I really do not want them to sing happy birthday, because I don't want the whole restaurant to be looking over to see whose birthday it is. And I don't want everybody to be looking at me. And I despise attention. I don't want, now I want to be recognized for the work that I do. Like if I had played a part in something and I was a vital role in that championship or in that success, I want to be recognized for it, but not like on a grandstand or attention seeking. Now, you also could be motivated by money. And that's something that a lot of people, when they don't care necessarily about somebody, they may be motivated by money. And to want to make money is not a bad thing, because you got to have money to live. But you got to check your motives, because if money is your motive, then you may do or say anything. And one thing I want women to realize and understand is that as for me, and my purpose with God is to share the wisdom that God gives me, to share the insight that God gives me. Now, personally, up until like the last 6 months or so, I wouldn't even comment on stuff that's happening in the media. And the reason why is because I don't like gossip. I don't like the celebrity gossip. I don't like the stuff. I don't like the media stuff. I don't like it at all. But what happened is I realized that as a servant, you have to serve, and serving means not always being comfortable. Serving means not always doing what you want to do. You got to serve the people. And so several people started asking me, Tony, what do you think of this? Tony, what do you think of this? And I heard a rule of thumb one time. It was a guy, he was talking about online courses. He was like, if somebody asks you the same question, if you get asked the same question from 3 different people about something, that's an online course. You should make an online course. Now, I kind of tweak that because I do that with my online courses, but with the videos, if somebody asks me, Tony, can you comment on this right here? And I see that over and over again, that let me know, even though I have no interest in this subject, if somebody is trusting me and looking at me and leaning on me for this insight, then I need to share it, because if I don't, somebody else gonna share it, and that person may not be led by God. That person may not walk with the Holy Spirit. So with this woman situation, the reason is some people who they expect me, because I protect women and because I look out for women, they expect me to just automatically be on her side and just come out and bash this man, which what he did was wrong, but it's not to the level that I'm seeing people talk about it. Like, I'm seeing a lot of women come out and like literally using some real terms that encompasses Ted Bundy. Like, look up Ted Bundy. Look up Jeffrey Dahmer. Like, people using terms that these men was diagnosed with. And another thing, with the narcissism thing, that's never going to be a one-size-fit-all. Like, I have clients who can diagnose someone with narcissism. And even my clients who are doctors, narcissism is a clinical diagnosis. It is not a Google diagnosis. And just because you were abused does not mean you were with a narcissist. And just because you were with a liar does not mean you were with a narcissist. There are several traits to narcissism. And it is a clinical diagnosis. It is not something that we can Google. It just, because if you go to Googling symptoms, you got AIDS. If you go to Googling symptoms, you got cancer. If you go to Googling symptoms, you got rheumatoid arthritis. You Googling symptoms, you got glaucoma. Like, think about that. When you Google symptoms, unless that is backed up by a clinical diagnosis, to where if you go to the doctor, people always say, well, narcissists don't go to the doctor. Narcissists ain't got to go to the doctor. You could go to the doctor. You could go to the psychotherapist and describe your whole relationship, and then they could tell you if you were with a narcissist or not. But I got clients who are doctors, and even they say, now think about this now, doctors working with a life coach, because they understand the difference between knowledge and wisdom. They understand that anybody could go and take tests and pass tests and not be gifted at their profession. And although they may feel gifted at their profession, they got the wisdom to see when somebody else is gifted at their profession. And so I have several clients who are psychotherapists, psychiatrists, therapists, counselors. And even they say people are overusing and misusing the term narcissist. And that's why I'm working to make a point to tell people, stop just throwing around labels. Stop throwing around labels just because you want to have a box and a bow to wrap your trauma in, to wrap your experiences in. Because the issue with that is when you diagnose, you now got to live the rest of your life with that diagnosis being the baseline or the benchmark. So you will, if you mislabel, let's say you get somebody who's a liar, and the term for them is pathological liar, but you calling this person a sociopath or psychotic or a narcissist, but they tell lies. Now, you're gonna meet people who they lie, but they lie not because they're crazy. They lie because they're afraid. They lie because they're not in a safe space. They lie because there's no safe space, and if they tell the truth will get them hurt. They lie because they were raised by a narcissist who was emotionally, physically, mentally abusive. And then what you also have to realize is that any type of symptom is going to show up. Any type of diagnosis is going to show up different in men and women. So women saying not all narcissists are abusive. If you read the term, the symptoms of a narcissist, the traits of a narcissist, there's no such thing as a man having those traits and not being abusive. It goes, those traits for a man goes hand in hand. For a woman may not become physically abusive. When I say abusive, I mean physically abusive. But it's not hard for a man to be physically abusive. Most women have been hit by a man. If not hit, then choked, slapped, punched, pushed. Physical abuse is not that far-fetched. Like, it's not something that nobody experiences. It's not something like you see physical abuse in childhood relationships. Like, middle schoolers are going through physical abuse. So you're not finna tell me as a man who done grew up with men and been around men in locker rooms my whole life, you're not finna tell me that a man got all of these traits and he not gonna get physically abusive. And you're not finna tell me that a man is a narcissist and he's not fixing to be verbally abusive, to where he talking to somebody to where he make a woman feel like trash because of her traits or because of her flaws. And what a lot of people don't realize is some people is thinking that this is just about the lady weight. That's the least of the things. But the thing about it is that is an elephant in the room at the same time. Meaning, if a man is a sociopath, psychopath, and a narcissist, if he all of those things, he's gonna take that one thing that may be her insecurity, and he's going to abuse that. So, and it's gonna happen way earlier. The physical may not happen early, but within the first 30 episodes, you're gonna hear he would always say, why don't you lose weight? Are you comfortable at that size? Do you realize that I'm the only man that will ever love you? You're gonna hear stuff like that if you dealing with a narcissist. You're not finna just have somebody who telling lies, because the lies that this man is telling is less about her and more about his delusion. He have delusions of grandeur, and he feels worthless. He feels like nothing. He feels insecure. He has been overlooked and mistreated by women his entire life. So he paints a picture so that he can get interest from women. Because what he has found is that if he pretends to have money, all of a sudden, women who would pass over him or leave him very quickly are now paying him attention if he tells these lies. So he's telling these lies from his insecurity. His lies is not even to be malicious, because if a man is lying, and again, there's a difference between a male and a female. There is a difference. And to the point now that so many women getting so sensitive, that women getting sensitive with the term female, when we are males and a woman is a female. A man is a man, a woman is a woman. Like, we getting so sensitive that we like, oh, I don't know the word, just the way you use the word. And it's like, yeah, some men say female, but that's because of a lack of vocabulary. The same men who say female also know the B word. So if it was meant to be hurtful, a man would say the B word instead of saying female. But today, women are becoming so sensitive because of the movement of the adversary to cause division between men and women. So now women are getting hung up over little things. And now here you got a man who is a compulsive, pathological liar, and he's literally being called a sociopath and a psychopath by women around the world. So what happens when you meet a sociopath? What happens when you start dating Jeffrey Dahmer or you start dating Ted Bundy? Now your baseline is so thrown off because you were labeling a pathological liar a sociopath and a psychopath and all of this stuff. And with the story that this woman is telling, 9 out of 10 women have gone through worse. This is what is baffling me. But maybe women at large don't know that. But maybe because I coach women every day, I hear stories 3 times worse than this every day. So maybe it's because of my profession. My baseline is off because I'm like, this sounds like elementary to me. Like, based on the stuff that I'm hearing every day, this don't sound like what y'all making it out to be. But that also speaks to our lack of purpose. It speaks to our lack of purpose in life, that we take and we engage and indulge in a 50-part series from someone who has not even worked on themselves, from someone who done went to the internet faster than going to therapy and actually doing the work. And then when you go and you do the work, you feel less prompted to talk about it because you done went and done the work. So now you have an understanding of what happened. So now you want to move on with your life. And if you want to help somebody and truly be of purpose, then you're going to go get the education to be a therapist or a counselor, or you're going to go get the certification to be a life coach, and you finna try to turn them lemons into lemonade. But when you just want to come and talk about it, and you want to drop hints to get gifts, you want to drop hints about your birthday and all of this. Don't nobody got to know when your birthday is, because now you know if people know your birthday, they gonna know your zodiac. And you know people believe in that zodiac stuff, so now they finna look up all that about you. All that ain't got to be out there. They ain't got to be mentioned. If your sole purpose is, especially when you talking to strangers, it's different if you got a platform and that you show up and you talk every day and you done built a rapport with your people. Now your people should know more about you. They should know your birthday. They should know your first and last name, your government. They should know these things. And so this what got to be realized, that a spade got to be called a spade. We can't be out here turning molehills into mountains, because that takes away from what you got to realize is there are thousands of women that's being beat on physically. And somebody said, Tony, sometimes the lies is worse than physical abuse. If you think that somebody lying to you is worse than physical abuse, you need therapy. You need therapy. Because if a man tell you he's about to buy a $700,000 house, okay, and he tells you that he got millions of dollars in the bank, how does that hurt you worse than him punching you in your temple. Like, literally listen to what's being said. People saying that lies is worse than physical abuse. That is the dumbest thing in the world, because a lie means that you got your hopes up and your hopes were not met. That's what a lie is. That is all a lie is. The devil is a liar. The devil lies every day. But what does God say? He said you could lie to him, but you can't touch his body. When God allowed the devil to lie on Job and to lie to Job and send him through that terrible, he say, you could do what you gonna do. You could test him, but you can't kill him. Because to kill him, he had to touch him physically. If you notice, all of the mental anguish that Job went through did not kill him. Because God gives peace in the midst of a storm. That's why you have to stop giving so much power to lies. And you have to stop giving so much power to other people's words. If somebody else's words can make you want to kill yourself faster than them actually physically killing you, that is an internal issue that needs to be addressed, and you have to remove that crutch. That's why they say, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. The reason why we were taught that as children is to tell you, do not let somebody else's words have precedent over your life. But what did it say? Sticks and stones may break my bones. What it is saying is, you will rather have the control in your mind to not let somebody's words dictate your life than to have them break your bones with sticks and stones. That's what that means. So if you're dealing with a liar, you then have to say the devil is a liar. That's why that term comes. The devil is a liar. The devil is a liar means that the devil has no power. The adversary, the enemy, your spouse, your boyfriend, girlfriend who is a liar has no power over your life. That no one has power over your life but God. But guess what? If somebody could physically touch you, if somebody is, think about this now, and you got to really process this. I'd rather be lied to and have my feelings hurt and be able to wake up to the lie like that woman could have did and move on with my life than have somebody uppercutting me, jabbing me, right crossing me, DDTing me, elbowing me, kicking me in my stomach, kicking me in my teeth, giving me black eyes, giving me lacerated livers and lungs from broken ribs, cutting my internal organs. It's like, this is what women going through. Women is going through this. Women is losing their life. Every 9 seconds, a woman is being beat on. And y'all taking and making a mountain out of a molehill of lies. Y'all taking a liar and you giving a liar more power than a physical abuser. And you literally saying out your mouth that you would rather a man punch you in your face than tell you a lie. That is the dumbest thing in the world. Because that lie, you could throw that lie back in his face. That lie, you get a say-so. You get a choice of whether you believe it or not, or whether you stay or not. All a lie doing is hurting your feelings. All a lie is doing is getting your hopes up and your hopes being crushed. That's all a lie is. That's like, it's like this right here. Would you rather the government lie to you and tell you that they care about you and that they're going to give you reparations in a stimulus check one day and not give it to you? Or would you rather them physically abuse you by locking you up and putting you in prison, in solitary confinement, and you don't have the choice or the power to leave? That's the difference between emotional abuse and physical abuse that I try to get y'all to understand. Is with emotional abuse, you get a say-so, because you get to process it and you get to decide if you're going to internalize it and believe it and accept it, or if you're going to let it go. Because when somebody is emotionally abusing you, but they're not physically abusing you and they're not physically abusive. That's like the fleas being in the jar with the lid on it, and they keep trying to jump out, and then they remove the lid and the fleas never go past the top of the jar. That's what emotional abuse does. Is it puts imaginary boundaries on you, and you start to feel like that you're trapped, and you start to internalize that abuse. And the goal of an emotional abuser is to make you want to kill yourself so that they don't have to kill you. Because if they are emotionally abusing you but they never touch you, and you go jump off a bridge, now they get to say that you were crazy. But see, if they actually physically abuse you, now they get to go to prison for murder. But see, with emotional abuse, you have a say-so, because you're not physically bound, you are mentally bound. And when you're mentally bound, your words have power. So if you're telling yourself that you are trapped and you have no power because you're being emotionally abused, you will be trapped. But if you actually step across the line to leave with a person who is not physically abusive, guess what? You get to go free. So what you have to understand is that more ownership has to be taken when you're dealing with emotional abuse and not physical abuse. See, the scary thing about physical abuse is that when you try to leave, because this person is physically abusive, they may kill you. They may hit you to the point that you lose consciousness, that you lose your life. And that's why physical abuse is more dangerous than emotional abuse. Emotional abuse may hurt you worse because your black eye heals. But what you got to realize is, although that black eye heals, the damage still remains because of what you internalize emotionally. So what you have to understand is, emotional abuse is emotional abuse. But physical abuse, it encompasses emotional abuse, physical abuse, and typically verbal abuse. Because a physical abuser is most likely emotionally and verbally abusive before becoming physically abusive. So this is why you have to choose your words wisely. And there are women in my comments saying that they would rather be physically abused than to be lied to. There are women in my comments saying that being lied to is worse than physical abuse. You need therapy, because physical abuse is also a lie. Physical abuse also has emotional abuse, because physical abuse will have a scar, will leave a scar, but that scar has emotions attached to it. Whereas emotional abuse, it will leave internal scars, but it won't kill you unless you agree to it. There's a quote that says, the opponent gets a vote too. What that means is, when you go into a battle or you go into a game, you don't just get to go dominate, because they get to play their game too. With emotional abuse, you get a say-so, and you have to make sure that you are not rendering yourself powerless by believing the emotional lies that you're being told about yourself. The point of emotional abuse is to make you feel dejected, and to make you feel worthless, and to make you feel like nothing. That's coming from the abuser. But then it comes to you, and now you get the choice as an adult, or as a thinking human. You get the choice to say, do I believe, am I going to believe what's being told to me about me? Or am I going to speak life into myself and leave this toxic relationship, because I'm not physically bound to this relationship. I'm only mentally bound, but I have the power over my mind, because death and life is in my tongue. Death and life is in the power of the tongue. So you have to say, am I going to choose to speak death over myself and accept death and believe death because this emotional abuser? Or am I going to speak life and see my worth and move on from this toxic emotional abuse? Physical abuse, you get the choice to say the same things, but the risk is far greater. And the reason why the risk is far greater than emotional abuse is because words cannot kill you. Words can only make you feel like killing yourself or killing someone else. That's the power of the mind. That's the power of the tongue. That is why God says death and life is in the power of the tongue. Because words can make you feel like killing yourself. But what a fist can do is a fist can actually kill you without your say-so. Someone can hit you in a way that no matter what your brain says, your body ceases to live. So don't ever in your life say that you prefer physical abuse over emotional abuse or being lied to, which is what's being called emotional abuse. Because physical abuse is way worse, because it encompasses them all. Because the way abuse works is abuse will be emotional first. Because emotional abuse is the lowest threshold. Because emotional abuse is where a man can take or a woman can take and talk to you 2 hours a day. Just like talking to you, just loving, and then disappear for 3 days. That abuses your emotions. How is emotional abuse different from verbal abuse? Talking to you 2 hours a day and just talking to you, that is not verbal abuse. When they ghost you for 3 days, that's emotional abuse, because it messes with your emotions. You get high and then you get low. Verbal abuse is where someone uses their words as a weapon. And they say to you, you know, you are one of the dumbest people I've ever met. You know, your body is disgusting. And the more I realize it, the more I realize, why am I even with you? That's verbal abuse. But guess what verbal abuse also is? Verbal abuse is also emotional abuse. Verbal abuse encompasses emotional abuse because the verbal words that are being said to you also messes with your emotions. So now you are being emotionally abused and verbally abused. Because here's what happens with emotional abuse. If someone gaslights you, plays with your emotions, they call you today, they don't call you tomorrow. They cheat on you. Cheating is emotional abuse. It's physical abuse if they have unprotected sex with someone and then they come have unprotected sex with you, because now they can give you an STD. That's physical abuse as well. But cheating is emotional abuse because they didn't say anything to you to hurt your feelings. They did something and your feelings were hurt because of what they did. But what they did wasn't to your physical body, it was to your emotions. They hurt your feelings. They led you on. They made you think that you two were exclusive, and then they broke the exclusivity. And so cheating is not verbal abuse, nor is it physical abuse, unless they're putting you in harm's way to catch an STD, which they're doing that by having sex with other people. But here's what could be said. With emotional abuse, that's someone lying to you. They're misleading you. They're making promises and they're not keeping the promises. A person can only be charged by God for lying. But they can't be charged in the court of law for telling you a lie. Because what the court of love is going to say is you have agency over your life. As soon as you realize that this was a lie, you have to chalk it up as this is a liar. That was a lie, but I still have my life. I have not been abused physically. I've been abused emotionally, but I still have breath in my body, agency over my life, and free will to move on. Now, verbal abuse can be charged in the court of love, and it can be charged in the court of law. Because verbal abuse can make you internalize, lead you to a process of internalization of the hateful words that you're hearing, and it can make you feel hopeless to the point that you do something to yourself because of the power dynamic in the relationship. And a judge could say that you were coerced or manipulated or taken advantage of mentally, which is also emotional abuse, with these words, and that's what led you to hurting someone or hurting yourself. A judge can make that judgment, and it's using inference, which means to read between the lines, but a judge has that ability. Now, physical abuse encompasses emotional abuse as well as verbal abuse. Verbal abuse is the precursor to physical abuse. Verbal abuse is the antecedent behavior to physical abuse. Not in every case, There may be cases, but it'll be very rare. It won't be the majority. But there may be cases where a person in a relationship, in an intimate relationship, became physically abusive without having ever been emotionally abusive or verbally abusive. But it is highly unlikely. And so with physical abuse, now a lot more is at stake, because this encompasses verbal abuse and emotional abuse, and inside of that may be several other types of abuse, like financial abuse, social abuse, meaning you can't have friends, you can't go anywhere, you're put on an island, you're isolated so that no one can hear your screams. See, all of these types of abuse come before physical abuse. That's why it is asinine and absurd to say that emotional abuse is worse than physical abuse, because physical abuse encompasses emotional abuse, but physical abuse can also take your life. Whereas emotional abuse and verbal abuse can make you feel depressed because of you internalizing what you've been told and you not taking agency over your life and ownership over your life, which God has given you, and let you know that death and life is in the power of your tongue, so that you have the power to take agency over your life regardless of what someone else is saying to you. But if you don't accept that ownership, which as adults we have to stop blaming someone else all of the time, and we have to look in the mirror and say, what can I do about this, and what can I change about this? Our problem is we're always just looking at others and saying, they did this to me, and that made me helpless. So I laid down and I allowed them to continue to do it to me. And then that is playing the victim. And so you have to understand that the mind is given a choice to be the victim or to be the victor. You can be overcame or you can overcome. God gives you that agency as a human. So with physical abuse, it is far greater, because now emotional and verbal are typically encompassed within the physical, but the physical can also cause you to lose your life, or it can drastically alter your life, meaning leaving you with physical scars, leaving with a malaligned body, leaving you crippled, leaving you paralyzed. And so, are you really serious when you say you would rather have someone take the power to leave you paralyzed than to have someone use toxic words against you but never put a hand on you and you be able to move on? Prime example, this young lady who did this 50+ part series is in complete and total physical health. She is able to live her life. She's able to make millions of dollars now. She's able to tell her story. She's able to name this man after a demon. She's able to ruin his name and expose him, run him through the ground. He may be fired from his job just for the acts that he's done, his immoral acts outside of the job. He may never be able to have another girlfriend. So she has been able to assert power and dominance now because she has her physical health. If he was physically abusive, she could be dead right now. She could be paralyzed right now. She could have half of a face right now if he was physically abusive. So would you rather her had her bills paid, her be motivated by his lies to go get a better job, to get a better car, to take ownership of her life, his lies actually became the battery in her back. Would you rather her be able to take the lies and turn the lies into her power, into her motivation, or would you rather her be beat to a pulp every day? So tell me again that the emotional abuse is worse than the physical abuse. And that's what people don't understand. So ask a woman who have been punched repeatedly by a man in her face if she would rather be lied to about a man getting ready to buy a house, or if she would rather be punched in the face every other day. Ask her. Now, there will be a demon in the comments with no picture and no real name say, hey, Tony, I was punched in the face every day, and I would rather be punched in the face than to be lied to, because a lie is the worst thing. You're always going to have devils in the details. You're always going to have devils who come in the comments to try to say something stupid. But when you look at their account and you realize that, okay, this is somebody literally playing devil's advocate. That's why I don't play devil's advocate. I play angel's advocate. I want to be on the side of the good, not just arguing for the sake of arguing. And so this is the problem right now with society, is we too sensitive and we're unwilling to accept the power that God has given us. And that's the problem. Now, it doesn't mean that someone telling lies is any less than a lie. To call a lie isn't downplaying a lie. It's just saying that a lie is far better than being held captive physically and abused physically. I would much rather, and even me as a man, I would much rather my wife cheat on me and then I find out she's cheated and I leave, versus her slit my throat in my sleep so that, or her poison me so that I die so that she could go be with another man. I would rather her cheat on me so that I could leave, or her tell me that she don't love me and she don't want to be with me so that she could be with another man, versus her physically abusing me, like what happens on the movies on Snapped. You'll see on Snap, they will take, and the woman will want to be with another man, and instead of just telling her husband, I don't want to be with you anymore, they will have the man killed. They'll try to hire a hitman, or they'll have their boyfriend that they're dealing with kill the man. These are real life stories. Go watch Snap. Search Snapped, SNAPPED. You can watch it on YouTube. And you're going to see these stories over and over and over and over. So let me ask you, do you think these dead husbands and these dead wives would have rather been lied to and yet have their life? What about their family? Do you think their family would rather have them alive but had been lied to and misled, or have them dead? So calling a lie isn't downplaying abuse. It's calling it what it is. It's a lie. But it is not the equivalent of physical abuse. And we cannot correlate the two, because one has far more grave consequences than the other. Because look at what this lady is living right now, that she would not be able to live had he realigned her face, had he really become a real monster, had he done to her what Jeffrey Dahmer and Ted Bundy did to their victims. And people are literally putting the same terminology that we use for Ted Bundy and Jeffrey Dahmer, they're putting it on this man. Which, yes, he is a human that is sick in the head, but there's levels to sickness. And the reason why I say this is because the people who will do you the worst may never do what this man did. So you'll overlook this other man because you never caught him in a lie. And then you will then he may become emotionally abusive and verbally abusive, but because he's not lying to you, because he's blunt, because he's direct, because he tells you like it is, you take and say, well, I'd rather the truth and be abused with the truth than a lie and not a finger be laid on me. That's a trick of the devil, because the devil wants you to kill yourself so that he don't have to answer to God. Because the devil, if the devil put hands on God's child, that is going to intensify and maximize when he is thrown into eternal damnation and no longer able to do anything to tempt anyone, to hurt anyone. The devil gonna have to pay a far greater price if he put hands on you and take your life versus just convincing you to forfeit your right from God to have agency and power over your life with your words. So never wish that someone would physically abuse you instead of verbally abusing you, if you are choosing between the two. Because no abuse is good, and you should not accept any of it. And you should leave off of the verbal and the emotional so that it doesn't become the physical, because the physical could actually remove the choice and the option of leaving. So you are better off leaving off of after the emotional than staying and taking your chances. Because if the physical happens, it's going to be far greater. So this is what needs to be understood. And I just got to the house, so we had us a long little session. My son back there on his Apple AirPods. He need to be listening to this good. You know how kids is. So think about this and listen. Never in a million years would me, as a protector of people, as a protector and a provider of humans and of God's children, would I downplay abuse. But what I'm not going to do is upplay it either. I'm not going to make a lie equivalent to a woman having her face smashed in. I'm not going to take and put a woman who is able to, with a clear mind and a clear conscience and a comedic tone, tell her story. I'm not going to put her in the same boat as a woman who literally has her jaw realigned and may be crippled or paralyzed and may be afraid for her life to ever open her mouth and tell her story, because she still fears for her life because of the physical punishment that a man put her through. I'm not going to put that woman who about to get free trips to London and BMWs and all these gifts for being transparent and telling her story. I'm not going to put her in the same boat as the woman who is running for her life and living in hiding and afraid to speak because her man will X her off the face of this earth. I'm not going to put them two together. That's not the same type of abuse. It's not the same level, and it's not the same consequences. And so that's what y'all have to stop playing like that. What this woman talking about is the worst thing a woman has ever gone through, and is the worst thing that a man could do to a woman, because there is far greater that a man could do to a woman. And somebody talking about, oh, well, that's what the story is about. She's with a pathological liar. No, that's not what the story is about, because people are now deeming this behavior as the worst behavior known to man, and as the same behavior that Jeffrey Dahmer and Ted Bundy did. And it's not the same. And you got to separate the two so that when you are in a relationship, you understand what the symptoms look like and what these signs, the red flags and the signs that a man is showing, what that's going to lead to. But if you blur the line, you're not going to have the discernment and the discretion to be able to lead. So, hey, this is Tony Gaskin. God bless you. We'll talk soon. Listen to it 2-3 more times if you didn't get it. Instead of saying ouch or want to argue, which is spirit of beg to differ, listen to it 2-3 more times and get it in your spirit, and you'll see.